I never liked the touch of seaweed on my feet. Now I have even more reason to not like it. Classic Doctor Who review, Fury from the Deep. I am kind of trying to burn through the animated recreations. I'm not promising that I'm going to get through like all of them in a row. I might take a breather from them, but I am kind of trying to get those off my plate. Partially just because I'm like almost always going to have some of the same things to point out, and it gets old. I'm like, let's just. But this one is a second Doctor story, so it's the second Doctor, it's Jamie, and it's Victoria. And they arrive at this sort of control center for this sort of hub of gas and oil rigs. And, well, weird stuff starts happening. And this is actually one of the better animated recreations I've seen in a while, partially because it's way more restrained than a lot of them have been. It's very clear that some things were obviously sort of gussied up, versus how they would have looked originally. Like I compared some of the existing stills that are still around to get a sense of, okay, how much did they exaggerate this? And like a little, but not a lot. And not too many things looked like they were fundamentally redesigned from scratch, practically, the way that a lot of the stuff in, say, The Underwater Menace was. Like, sort of my big frustration with the choices made for the animated recreation of that one was that, things that did not need redesigning, like these, the temple room, and even just the outfits, the costumes that characters were in. Like, why was that redesigned? Why is that 100% completely different from what was actually done? And it just felt like improvements that didn't need to be there. And again, that's true to a certain extent here, but I think this benefits from the fact that this is visually a much more low-key episode. Like the threat visually is seafoam and seaweed. Like, do they overdo? Like, there's some with like these massive strands of seaweed. I'm not sure what they did in the original. Pretty sure they didn't do that. But it doesn't feel like it goes as over the top as some of the stuff, but not even as over the top as like the way the Makra got redesigned in the Makra Terror, because even there, they just looked way better in a way that kind of like just felt at odds with the actual story being told, and some of the ways that it was done. And also I just on principle, I don't super love in my mind, the animated recreations, especially for ones that we have almost nothing of, those I would much more prefer that they hew as close to possible to what we think it actually looked like, as opposed to like an idealized version. But again, philosophically, I lost that battle ages ago. But keeping it, in mind that I've seen it go way more off the rails, this is way more restrained, and it helps because this benefits from the atmosphere and the slow build. It's still, I could still argue it might not have needed 6 episodes, but it is building over that time, and there is a decent sense of growing fear that is aided by the threat being something that's kind of creeping, and quite literally, but also just this sense of there's something just creeping around, and also the fact that the seaweed can impact the minds of some of the human characters, which means you have a little bit of an Invasion of the Body Snatchers thing going. It doesn't really lean into that aspect as much as it could have. Like, Invasion of the Body Snatchers is one of my favorite movies of all time. I prefer the 70s remake. But anyways, as much as it could have leaned more into it, but just the sense that the threat is just normal people, and these things that they don't try and overdo too much. Yeah, I think it works pretty well. I watched it in black and white, which I think just atmospherically fits it so much better. Now I know why, because from a technical standpoint, there's no reason why they can't. But again, philosophically, I don't understand why when they put out these animated recreations, they have a color option in addition to the black and white. It's a black and white show. Put it in black and white. Sorry. Like, none of this matters. So the doctor, Jamie, and Victoria, they arrive here, and like one of the first things they hear is like, boy, sounds like there's something in that pipe. If I were to criticize, I think there's one major thing in addition to the fact that it might be a little bit too long. But Robson, who is, kind of the guy in charge, and he is the designated, you're the human problem. You're the roadblock because he won't listen, and it's obviously not just a matter of him not believing that there's weed. Like, as a matter of principle, like, this is and it's not that they don't justify this as a characterization, but he's a guy who has been working oil rigs his whole life, and under his supervision, the gas has never stopped flowing, and he's not going to let it stop now. And I get that as a characterization, but that is ultimately a characterization used to justify him just being the pig-headed guy who refuses to do the sensible thing and stops people from doing the sensible thing. Which, he's the mayor of Amity Island from Jaws. Like, that's what except he shouts a lot more. He's very shouty. A lot of screaming in this one. Actually, why don't we talk about Victoria? Because here's the funny thing. Normally I'd be inclined to complain how much she is just put in danger, screams, rescued, put in danger, screams, rescued, just does not want to seems like she does not want to be there, just seems, distressed most of the time. These are qualities that I will often complain about. I'm not going to in this story for a couple of reasons. The first is, while, yeah, maybe there was a little bit more screaming than we needed, at the same time, they do actually kind of play with that a little bit, because in the end, they channel her screams into like a sonic pitch to ward off this stuff. I'm like, okay, all right, it's a little bit of a contrivance, but there's actually like a plot reason you had her screaming so much. So that was kind of fun. And then in terms of her, like, God, she clearly doesn't want to be here. Yeah, this is the one where she leaves. So rather than feeling like, say, Perry, where it's like, girl, you don't want to be here and you don't feel safe around this guy. Will you please stop traveling with him? Please, this is so uncomfortable. Instead of venturing into that territory, it reminds me way more of Tegan leaving at the end of Revolution of the Daleks? I think. No. Revolution of the Daleks was the Chibnall. Is it Resurrection? Resurrection of the Daleks. That's the one. And it reminded me more of that, where, like, yeah, she's clearly not having fun, and that is leading up to her decision to stop traveling with the Doctor. And it makes sense, especially when you pair this with the conversation like that she has with the Doctor. That I adore this conversation, but the conversation they have in Tombs of the Cybermen. Where, she kind of has her reservations, like, you really live like this. And the Doctor's like, oh, yes, this is amazing. We get to live an incredible life. And, she kind of sees the wonder in it then, but she's just been through harrowing experience after harrowing experience since then. And you get why that's not enough anymore. And she's ready to stop. So I think, actually, this is a case where giving the companion or one of the companions a bunch of traits that normally annoy me actually fits here. It's kind of interesting. And also, like, she does get to be helpful. She's apparently handy with a hairpin. She can pick a lock. They actually kind of get a gag out of that, where Jamie's crawling through a vent to get out of this room. They're locked in, and hurts himself because he crashes coming out. And he crashes on the floor just as she just picks open the door and like, oh, sorry about that, Jamie. Because she told him she was going to do it, but he's like, no, I can't wait. And it's It's fun. It's funny. Actually, there's a really sweet affection between them that never once feels like it's trying to be romantic. I mean, like, some people probably could read it this way. You probably could read it as him having a crush on her, but it just, to me, it always just felt more protective. And there's something about him just kissing her forehead as a goodbye at the end. I don't know. It just felt real platonic and sweet. That's my read on it. I liked that a lot. Tiny note, trivia, really. Debut of the sonic screwdriver in this episode. And it gets used to remove some screws. It's literally just a screwdriver in this first appearance. But yep, had to start somewhere. And there it is. I think the big strengths on this one is atmosphere, and I suppose it's technically a base under siege story. It doesn't feel like a lot of base under siege stories because it's not like we have to hold out from the monster. Well, by the very end, it's a little bit that. But in the build up to it, it's a lot more like this thing's already here and we don't know what it's doing. We don't know how it's doing it. And we don't know what it's trying to accomplish. But like, stuff's off, stuff's wrong. And there's a much more creeping sense of dread behind it than I usually feel from a lot of stories that are similar on paper or similar structurally. Yeah, it's pretty good. The music, actually, the music's, yeah, I was gonna say, the music is very striking, usually in a good way, occasionally in a, oh God, would you stop way, because we have the two engineers. They get a tall, thin one and a short, fat one because visually they were going for a Laurel and Hardy thing. But you know, when those two guys are around, the soundtrack's literally just going dee 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 dee. It's like it's stop. It's they shouldn't have told the composer that they were trying to go for a little bit of a Laurel and Hardy thing because it's like the composer tried to put a sense of levity into the soundtrack itself, and that was a bad idea. But other than those moments, the soundtrack is quite good. It's quite good use of discordant electronic music. I like it. And again, it's just a relief to see one of these animated recreations that's way more restrained, and is not, you know, trying to fix the episode or the way it looked, or at least it doesn't feel like it is. Like, technically it probably is, but it didn't take really anything to such a level where I'm like, yeah, there was zero chance that that was even the intention of what they were trying to make it look like. So one of the things I really like about classic Doctor Who, especially early classic Doctor Who, is that it is, even when it's ambitious, it's still kind of low-key, at least visually. And that's part of its charm for me, and that gets lost in the animated recreations, I feel. A lot of the time. It's pretty well preserved in this one. I think this is one of the better ones, personally. It's definitely the best one I've seen since Abominable Snowman. Yeah, good stuff. Fury from the Deep. Have you seen it? What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts might be, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Did you ever listen to like the audio recreation that was narrated by Fraser Hines? I know folks like Stu Bagfull kind of grew up on that, and that spawned his original love of this story. You know, just whatever your thoughts may be. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe. They all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lutfula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twylord, Tracy Scrabbit, Paul Barabajoggle, Magdalena, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Additionally, to thank some folks from the lower tiers of support: Lee and Andy, Gavin Hinden, and I Am Orcus. We have some new friends. We have Peppercorn and where'd the other one go? Where'd you go? Coriander has gone behind my head. They are very young and they haven't been integrated with the other rats yet, but soon. Okay, yes. Maybe you weren't quite camera ready.